Speech title: Silence is Power. 7 Keynotes. Mell Robbins style: silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. In a world addicted to noise and constant opinion sharing, staying quiet is your secret weapon. When you choose silence, you're not backing down, you're stepping up with discipline. Every time you stay silent, you reclaim your energy. Not every argument needs your input. Not every situation deserves your explanation. Silence protects your peace and focuses your power where it actually matters. Silence lets you observe what others miss. While others are rushing to speak, you're collecting data. You're watching, learning, and seeing the truth underneath the noise. That's how you outsmart chaos. Your silence teaches people how to treat you. When you stop over-explaining, defending, or reacting, you teach people that your time and energy aren't up for grabs. Silence builds respect without ever raising your voice. Silence is the breeding ground of clarity. The answers you're looking for, they're not in the noise. They show up when you slow down, shut up, and tune in. Silence sharpens your instincts and aligns your decisions. Silence gives you the upper hand in emotional control. People lose power when they lose control. Silence is your pause button. It keeps you from saying something you'll regret and helps you respond instead of react. The most powerful people in the room speak the least. Why? Because they don't need to prove anything. Silence makes people lean in. It creates presence. It demands attention without ever asking for it. 1. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. 1. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. You've been taught your whole life that if you're not speaking up, you're falling behind. That silence means you're passive. That staying quiet means you're being overlooked. But let me tell you something that will flip that story upside down. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. It's not that you don't have something to say. It's that you know exactly when to say it. Most people talk just to fill the space. They speak because they're uncomfortable with quiet. They speak because they feel the pressure to prove themselves. But when you understand the power of silence, you stop reacting and start planning. You start observing. You stop playing defense and start playing offense in a game most people don't even know is happening. You walk into a room and you can feel it. The energy is chaotic. Everyone is trying to be the loudest, the smartest, the most convincing. But you stay calm. You say nothing. And here's the magic. People notice, not because you shouted, but because you didn't. Because you weren't trying to compete with noise. You weren't trying to be noticed, and that's exactly why your silence is not about being invisible. It's about being intentional. It's about choosing when to speak, how to speak, and most importantly, if you should speak at all. That's what separates people who constantly react from people who quietly win. Every time you choose silence, you're choosing control. You're choosing power. When you're silent, you're not distracted by your ego. You're not trying to look smart. You're not playing verbal ping-pong. You're in control of your energy, and that's everything. Because if you can control your energy, you can control your outcomes. That's what most people miss. They think silence means you've given up. They think it means you've got nothing. What they don't know is that behind that silence is a loaded cannon of clarity, a vault of confidence, a mind that's thinking 3 steps ahead. While they're busy reacting, you're busy preparing. While they're scrambling, you're strategizing. Silence makes people uncomfortable because they can't read you. They don't know what you're thinking, and that unsettles them. But guess what? That's good. When people can't predict you, they can't manipulate you. When they can't read you, they can't box you in. That's the edge silence gives you. Think about every powerful leader, mentor, or badass you've ever respected. Were they the loudest one in the room? No, they knew when to shut up. They let silence do the heavy lifting. They let their presence say what words couldn't. They weren't trying to prove anything. Because people who truly have power don't have to prove it. They are it. You don't need to argue every point. You don't need to respond to every insult. You don't need to jump into every conversation. Silence is the filter. Silence is the test. If it doesn't need your voice, it doesn't get your energy. And let's get real. Silence also saves you from self-sabotage. How many times have you said something you wish you could take back? How many times have you made it worse by reacting too fast? That's the trap. Silence gives you that space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you get your power back. Sometimes silence is louder than any response. Sometimes no reaction is the most impactful reaction. And if you've ever watched someone crumble under the weight of your silence, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Not because you're cruel, but because silence forces people to sit with themselves, with their words, with their actions. And that's where the real accountability lives. Silence makes room for truth. Because when the noise dies down, what's left? What's real? What matters? That's what silence reveals. And if you're brave enough to sit in it, not rush to fill it, not run from it, then you're going to start hearing something you've been missing for a long time. Yourself. You start noticing your thoughts, your gut instincts, your actual opinions, not just the ones you've been programmed to repeat. And from that stillness, something incredible starts to build. Confidence, not the fake kind that needs to shout. The deep kind that doesn't flinch, doesn't beg, doesn't break. You stop explaining yourself to people who already made up their minds. You stop justifying your dreams to people who can't even see their own potential. You stop oversharing with people who haven't earned your trust. And you realize that silence isn't a retreat. It's a redirection. It's a refocus, so the next time you feel the urge to explain, defend, or shout over the noise, pause. Wait, don't, because silence, that's not you backing down. That's you getting ready. That's you playing chess while they're still busy playing checkers too. Every time you stay silent, you reclaim your energy. You have no idea how much energy you waste explaining yourself to people who will never get it. You're running on empty, not because you're doing too much, but because you're saying too much. Every argument, every unnecessary reply, every forced conversation, it's draining your power, and you don't even realize it. You don't need to respond to everything that pokes at you. Not every opinion deserves a rebuttal. Not every question requires an answer. The more you try to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you, the more exhausted you become. Silence is how you shut the valve. Silence is how you stop the leak. Silence is self-respect in action. When you don't give everyone access to your voice, your thoughts, your attention, you're not being cold, you're being wise. You are not obligated to put your energy on the line every time someone hands you an invitation to chaos. Decline it. Silently, with peace. You're not ignoring people. You're protecting your capacity, because the truth is, your energy is currency. It's your fuel, and if you keep spending it in places that don't return the investment, you will crash. You'll feel depleted, resentful, unmotivated, and wonder why. It's not burnout, it's overexplaining, it's overtalking, it's too much output, not enough alignment. And you know what's wild? Most people aren't even listening to understand you. They're listening to respond. They're listening so they can jump in with their opinion. So why are you exhausting yourself trying to be heard in a space that isn't even built to receive you? Why are you shouting into rooms that have already made up their minds? Silence is a boundary. Silence is your way of saying, I'm not engaging with this. And the beautiful part, you don't even need to announce it. Just don't participate. Let them talk. Let them spiral. Let them assume. You stay grounded. You stay silent. That's the move. Your peace is sacred. And you will never protect it if you keep inserting yourself into everything. You don't owe people a reaction. You don't owe them your emotional availability, especially when they're not bringing anything but noise and drama. Silence is how you reclaim your emotional real estate. You've got goals. You've got healing to do. You've got habits you're building, dreams you're chasing, priorities you're recalibrating, and that work, that focus, it needs energy. So every time you get quiet instead of reactive, you're redirecting your power to where it belongs, your growth. You don't need to explain your past. You don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need to argue your values. You're not on trial. Silence says, I know who I am, and that's enough. And when you really start living from that place, from that groundedness, everything changes. You start feeling lighter. You stop overthinking conversations. You stop rehearsing what you should have said. You stop checking your phone for that reply. because you weren't waiting for anything in the first place. You weren't fishing for validation. You weren't performing. You were grounded in silence, and that grounded you in self-respect. Sometimes people get louder because they're trying to pull you into their storm. Don't fall for it. Don't meet them at their chaos. Stay in your calm, and if your silence feels threatening to them, let it. That's not your burden. That's their discomfort with boundaries. You are not here to carry conversations that exhaust you. You are not here to keep peace by breaking yourself. You are not here to respond to every low vibration message just to seem polite. You are here to protect your frequency, and silence is your force field. Let people think what they want. Let them draw their conclusions. Let them stew in their assumptions, because while they're focused on your silence, you're focused on your future. You're investing that saved energy into healing, building, dreaming, becoming. You are not drained. You are focused, and that's the difference between noise and power. The next time you feel that pull, the pressure to reply, defend, respond, pause, ask yourself, is this a good use of my energy? If the answer is no, get quiet. Walk away, reclaim your energy, because silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means something important is happening. You're choosing you. 3. Silence lets you observe what others miss. Most people are addicted to noise. They talk without thinking. They answer without listening. They move so fast, they don't even see what's right in front of them. But when you choose silence, when you shut your mouth and open your eyes, you start to notice everything they miss. You see the way someone's body shifts when they lie. You catch the hesitation before they speak. You hear what wasn't said. You feel what the room is actually doing. That's the gift of silence. It sharpens your instincts. It tunes you into the frequency behind the words, because here's the truth. When you're talking, you're not learning. You're expressing, and that has a place. But power, real power, lives in awareness, and awareness can't grow in noise. It grows in observation, in stillness, in the decision to listen deeply, not just hear. Silence is how you learn people. It's how you learn rooms. It's how you learn patterns. Everyone's broadcasting signals all the time. The insecure mask it with arrogance. The manipulative dress it up as charm. The unsure overcompensate with confidence. And if you're too busy talking, you'll fall for all of it. But when you're silent, you're watching. And when you're watching, you're gathering intel. That's what makes you dangerous, not because you're calculating, but because you're not distracted. You're focused, you're aware, and awareness is the foundation of every smart move you'll ever make. You walk into a meeting and you're quiet, not because you're scared, but because you're absorbing. You let people show you who they are. You let their words reveal their priorities. You let their tone tell you their motives. And while they're trying to impress you, you're evaluating. You're spotting gaps, reading dynamics, finding the pressure points the loudest. Productive. They panic in stillness. That's why they miss the cues. That's why they make sloppy decisions. That's why they can't connect the dots. Because they've never trained themselves to wait, to listen, to truly see. And when you start noticing what others miss, you stop playing the same game. You stop chasing validation. You stop taking things personally, because you see the root. You see the patterns. You see the fear behind the bragging, the insecurity behind the criticism, the desperation behind the drama. You realize most people aren't coming at you. They're projecting their own chaos. And because you've been watching quietly, you don't get baited. You don't get pulled in. You don't need to clap back. You already know the truth, and that truth sets you free from needing to respond. Silence helps you make better decisions. You don't jump at the first offer. You don't say yes just to be liked. You don't rush into commitments just to avoid discomfort. You watch, you wait, you weigh, and then, when the time is right, you act, not impulsively, not emotionally, but with precision. That kind of control, that kind of clarity, it only comes from observation. It only comes from silence. The world is loud. Let it be. That's how you'll hear the things no one else can. That's how you'll notice the cracks, the patterns, the leverage. That's how you'll always stay 2 steps ahead. So stop rushing to be heard. Start choosing to observe. Because when you stop needing to say something, you finally get to see everything. 4. Your silence teaches people how to treat you. There's a moment, and you know exactly when it happens, when someone says something out of line, and your first instinct is to fire back. To explain, to defend, to correct. But what if instead you said nothing? What if your silence was your boundary? People watch how you respond, and then they decide how far they can push. If you always jump in to fix, explain, or smooth things over, they'll keep expecting it. If you react to every jab, they'll keep throwing them. But when you meet disrespect with silence, you're saying loud and clear, "I'm not available for this." You don't have to scream to set a boundary. You don't have to write a monologue to earn respect. Sometimes, the strongest message you can send is no message at all. Silence isn't passive, it's powerful. It signals that you don't need to participate in nonsense to validate yourself. When you stop over-explaining, you take your power back. You don't need to justify why your standards exist. You don't need to convince anyone why your boundary matters. You just hold the line, and people feel that. They may not say it, but they feel the shift, the weight of your silence. Silence builds a wall they can't climb. Not because you're cold, but because you're solid. And solid people don't waver for attention. They don't chase understanding from people committed to misunderstanding them. They don't leak energy trying to educate someone who doesn't want to learn. Let them misinterpret you. Let them assume. Let them stew in the silence, because that's when the mirror shows up. That's when their own words echo back. That's when they realize they were talking at you, not with you. That's when they realize you're not engaging, and that's a wake-up call. Silence teaches people you're not going to beg to be respected. You're not going to argue for basic decency. You're not going to participate in dynamics that cost you your peace. And once they learn that, everything shifts, because now they have to step up or step out. You don't need to announce your standards. Live them. If you don't respond to manipulation, they'll stop trying. If you don't reward guilt trips with attention, they'll stop throwing them. If you don't chase people who ghost you, they'll realize you're not afraid of distance. That kind of confidence comes from being willing to be misunderstood. Being willing to disappoint people. Being willing to let silence do the talking. It's uncomfortable at first, but it's also freeing, because now you're not negotiating your worth. You're not managing other people's emotions. You're just standing still and letting them adjust, and guess what? The right people won't be confused by your silence. They'll respect it. They'll match it with consideration. They'll rise to it. Because people who value you don't need you to over-explain. They just need your presence, and your presence becomes more powerful when it's protected. Every time you don't respond to nonsense, you reinforce your self-worth. Every time you choose silence over chaos, you reinforce your emotional maturity. Every time you let your peace speak for you, you reinforce your growth. People notice, and they start adjusting how they approach you. The people who aren't used to boundaries will push back. They'll call you distant. They'll call you rude. They'll call you cold. Let them, because they're not really mad at your silence. They're mad that their control doesn't work anymore. They're mad they can't access the old version of you, and that's exactly why your silence matters. It's not just for them, it's for you. It's a declaration that you've outgrown old dynamics, that you're not performing for connection anymore, that you're not available for relationships that need constant fixing. Your silence is a mirror. Your silence is a line in the sand. Your silence is a reminder that not everyone gets access to you just because they want it. They have to earn it. They have to respect it. And if they don't, they lose it. No tantrum, no explanation. Just silence. So the next time someone crosses the line, don't rush to respond. Don't try to fix it. Don't start talking. Just stop. Let your silence. It gives you a moment to breathe, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. Because when your mind is quiet, you see what actually matters, not what you were pressured into, not what looks good, but what feels right. People make bad decisions because they move too fast. They talk too much. They ask everyone for advice before asking themselves what they really want. They outsource their clarity, and that's why it never sticks. You can't rent your truth from someone else. You have to get quiet enough to hear your own vision, and this doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means becoming intentional about what you allow in. It means carving out moments every day where your only job is to listen not to music, not to podcasts, not to people, just to yourself, because that version of you. The quiet one, that's where the wisdom lives. You've got answers already, but the world is loud, and the louder it gets, the more you doubt what you already know. That's why silence isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It's how you reset. It's how you protect your inner compass. It's how you find your way again when the map stops making sense. Clarity changes your life. It simplifies everything. Decisions get easier. Relationships become obvious. Priorities fall into place, but you don't get there by forcing it. You get there by creating space for it, by choosing silence over noise, stillness over hustle, reflection over reaction. Sometimes clarity doesn't show up right away. Sometimes it takes sitting in silence longer than you want, and that's where most people quit. They don't want to wait. They don't want to sit with uncertainty, but that's the test. Can you stay still long enough for the fog to lift? Because when it does, when that clarity hits, it's undeniable. You'll feel it in your gut. You'll know exactly what to do, not because someone told you, but because you listened. Because you stopped long enough to hear the part of you that's always known the way. So if you're confused right now, overwhelmed, tired of second guessing, stop looking outward. Stop talking it to death. Stop chasing clarity through chaos. Get still, get silent, give it space to rise, because your clarity, it's not gone. It's just waiting for you to shut up and listen. 6. Power grows when you stop reacting. You don't owe the world a reaction. You don't owe it by drip. Every time you hand your energy over to something that doesn't deserve it, most people are addicted to reacting. They get offended. They fire off a reply. They spiral for hours. And for what? To prove a point, to defend their ego. That's not power. That's emotional slavery. Because now you're being controlled by whatever just pushed your button. The moment you stop reacting, you create space. Space to breathe, space to think, space to choose how you want to respond, if you even want to respond at all. And that gap between trigger and reaction, that's where your power is born, because let's be real, anybody can react. That takes no effort, that takes no strength, but to stay calm when chaos wants your attention, that's rare, that's self-control, that's power that's been earned, not performed. When you stop reacting, you stop being predictable. You stop being easy to manipulate. People can't push your buttons if you've disconnected the control panel. And when you stay neutral in the storm, people don't know what to do with that. They can't steer you. They can't bait you. They lose access to your emotions. It's not about being cold. It's not about bottling things up. It's about maturity. It's about deciding that your peace is more important than being right. That your energy is too valuable to spend on things that don't matter. In 5, they'll learn that you don't perform for chaos. They'll learn that your emotions are no longer available for cheap rent. Reactivity is impulsive. Power is intentional. When you pause, you take control of the moment. You take control of yourself. You flip the script. Now you're not reacting from your wounds. You're responding from your wisdom, and the shift is real. You go from emotional outbursts to calm boundaries. You go from panicked decisions to aligned action. You go from letting other people steer your day to deciding where your energy goes, hour by hour. That's what happens when you learn to sit with the discomfort and not flinch. You'll start noticing the patterns, how certain people only come around to trigger you, how certain environments drain you just by pulling you into their chaos. But now you don't bite, you don't engage. You've seen it before. You've outgrown the bait, and the less you react, the more clarity you gain. You see who's trying to provoke you. You see who feeds on drama. You see who needs your emotional reaction to feel powerful, and when you refuse to give it to them, you take that power back, quietly, fully. Let them talk, let them twist the story, let them press your buttons. You're not a machine they can operate. You're a grown, grounded, focused human being who knows that emotional discipline is a flex. It's not weakness to pause. It's not weakness to say nothing. It's power. Because you're not avoiding, you're choosing. You're deciding what gets your energy and what doesn't. And that choice builds momentum. It builds presence. It builds the version of you that walks into a room and doesn't flinch. So then, silence isn't weakness. It's restraint. People mistake silence for weakness because they're addicted to noise. They think the loudest one wins. The fastest reply wins. The last word wins, but that's not power. That's insecurity dressed up in volume. Real power doesn't need to prove itself. Real power knows that restraint is the real flex. There's a kind of strength that comes from holding back, from choosing not to speak just to fill the space. Not to fight just to be right. Not to explode just because you're angry. That's what silence really is. Not silence out of fear, not silence out of submission, but silence out of discipline. Weakness reacts. Power decides, and restraint, that space between the impulse and the action. That's where your self-respect lives. That's where your maturity lives. That's where your future self is built. Because anyone can say the first thing that comes to mind. It takes strength to pause and say nothing. We live in a world that rewards reaction. You post fast, you reply fast, you argue fast, and for what? Attention, validation, to feel like you're in control. That's not real control. Real control is the ability to sit with your emotion and not let it control your mouth. That's restraint, that's leadership, that's self-mastery. Silence is not surrender, it's strategy. It's knowing the difference between reacting and responding. It's knowing when your words will add value and when they'll just add noise. It's knowing that your presence is more powerful. Composed, you don't just protect your peace, you shatter their game. Let them think you're weak. Let them think they've got the upper hand. Because silence buys you time. It keeps you in control. It gives you options. And people don't know how to handle someone they can't provoke. That's power. That's mental strength. Most people will never understand. You don't have to prove you're strong by raising your voice. Sometimes you prove your strength by not saying a word. You don't have to argue with every insult. Sometimes you let people talk themselves into irrelevance. You don't have to match their energy. You can stay grounded in your own. The more you practice restraint, the more people realize they can't rattle you. They can't guilt you into reacting. They can't manipulate your emotions like they used to. And that shakes them, because people who rely on chaos can't thrive when you're calm, and you don't need to announce it. You don't need to declare, I'm staying silent now. You just do it, quietly, consistently, with conviction, and that silence speaks louder than any comeback ever could. It tells people, I'm not playing this game anymore. I've outgrown it. Restraint is strength under pressure. It's the ability to feel the heat and still choose peace, to feel the pull and still stay centered, to be underestimated and still keep building silently, because you're not chasing reactions, you're chasing results, and silence clears the path to them. The version of you who's reactive, emotional, explosive, that's the past version. The future version, the one who gets what they want, the one who moves with power and clarity, that version practices restraint like it's a lifestyle, because it is. It's a daily choice to hold the line. People who can't control you will call your silence weakness. Let them, that's their story, not yours. Your silence is evidence of your self-respect, your boundaries, your growth. It's not weakness, it's the loudest proof that you're no longer ruled by impulse. So next time you're tempted to clap back, shut it down. Next time someone tries to bait you into chaos, don't take the hook. Sit still, stay silent, breathe. And remember, anyone can speak, but it takes real strength to say nothing when everything in you wants to scream conclusion. Silence is power. When the world gets loud, your silence becomes your sanctuary. It's not just about staying quiet, it's about staying in control. Every time you choose not to react, not to explain, not to defend what doesn't need defending, you grow, you rise, you reclaim your power, because silence isn't passive. It's deliberate, it's sharp, it's focused. It's not weakness, it's restraint. It's a sign that you've stopped letting the outside world dictate your inner world, that you've stopped trading your peace for approval, your presence for noise, your energy for nonsense. And no, it's not always easy. Staying silent takes more strength than speaking. It takes self-awareness to pause. It takes discipline to hold back. It takes courage to trust that you don't need to prove yourself. But when you do, when you choose silence, something changes. You become untouchable in a whole new way. You stop letting people pull you into chaos. You stop chasing closure from people who never gave you clarity. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. Instead, you walk away. You protect your space. You hold your power without needing anyone to validate it, because silence holds gravity. It builds mystery. It demands respect. The loudest one in the room is rarely the most powerful. It's the one who can sit in stillness. The one who doesn't flinch. The one who knows exactly who they are and doesn't need to shout it. Let the noise swirl around you. Let people say what they want. Let the world spin. You stay centered. You stay rooted. You stay silent, not because you're scared, but because you're solid, and in that silence, something incredible happens. You gain clarity. You gain perspective. You gain control. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop surviving and start leading. And suddenly, your silence isn't just a choice, it's a declaration that you're done playing small, that you're done explaining yourself, that you're done being emotionally available to chaos. So let this be your reminder. You don't have to speak to be powerful. You don't have to react to be relevant. You don't have to fight to be strong. Sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is stay calm, stay quiet, and move in silence, because your silence, that's where your power lives, and when you learn to protect it, you become unstoppable. That's the power of silence.